Welcome to The Retirement Architect. My name is Cynthia Defazio, and I'm joined today by David Reyes. And David is the founder and chief financial architect of Reyes Financial Architecture. David, how are you today?
I'm very well, thank you.
It's so good to see you again.
You too, you too.
What has life been like in the office? I know you've been extremely busy, obviously, with the radio show, with the television show, and now with this television show as well. Tell me what life's been like.
Well, it's been fun. I mean, doing the television show is definitely a new, done television, not this type of format, which I love. It gives you more time to, to be able to interact, feel like you're interacting with the audience and have somebody like yourself on set instead of talking to myself on the radio station, which I've done for many years. But it's just great to have another medium to communicate and to offer, thoughts of 25 years of experience, and hopefully I can impart that on some members of our audience today.
Absolutely. And in case someone is watching for the very first time, David, where does your passion come from helping others?
You know, when I started in the business in 1995, moved from Sacramento here to San Diego, and during that first year, my grandfather passed away, and he saved every penny he earned. He'd worked for Sears and Roebuck for many years, a television repairman, and it was very disheartening to watch his entire fortune. He had a couple $100,000, but he was a very simple man. No debt, but he lost everything to long-term care, to nursing home care. And so, when he passed in 95, my first year, I got a phone call from my mother, and she had just gotten a notice that there was a lien on the property for $20,000 for a meager $50,000 house in Fresno that they were going to lose. My mother was going to lose because of long-term care costs, because under the rules of Medicare, or Medicaid, Medi-Cal, is that if you have any assets, they can recover those assets. Because in order to qualify for Medi-Cal, you can only have $2,000 in the bank, a wedding ring, a burial plot, a car, and a home. But if you have any assets left over when you pass, guess what? They can reach in and get those assets. So it's a problem. And when I was a whole 27 years old, 25 years ago, I knew zero. But I was the only person in our family that had any finance background. And so of course they think, oh, you know all the answers. Well, really, that's a very complex situation. Fortunately, we were able to save the house, hired a very good estate plan attorney, elder law attorney, but that really was a defining moment for me, and really had me focus on just protecting capital first. Our clients are all retirees, pre-retirees. Our average client's probably 67, 68, and they've spent their entire lives saving every penny that they have. And so my job is to protect that capital first, number one. One. If we don't have the money, we can't spend it. So above and beyond anything else, that's where my passion lies. How do we protect capital, create cash flow that we can't outlive, and there's definitely art and science and experience behind doing that over this time frame. So
sure, absolutely. David, are you hearing one question more than anything else right now from your clients, especially with what we went through, of course, in 2020 being such an unprecedented year, if you will?
Yeah, I think managing risk is a big one. It always is. I think people are really realizing there's things we can't control. COVID is a great teacher of that. And so I think people are more concerned than they were in the past about managing risk. And so and unfortunately, most clients' portfolios are ill-equipped to do that. Kind of a feather in the wind. Whatever happens with their financial resources. And you think it's kind of crazy, and we protect everything we have. We have health insurance, life insurance, homeowners insurance, auto insurance, but we have no insurance on our portfolios. I think how crazy that is. We have no plan to protect.
I know.
And we're just kind of sold a bill of goods, unfortunately, by our industry has done a poor job of managing risk. I always tell a client, if an advisor tells you in a COVID crash or 2008 or whatever it is, the market's down 20, 30%, and you're just kind of riding it out, and they say, don't worry, it's going to come back. Well, you need to find a new advisor because there are things that we can talk about. We will talk about how we can kind of have our cake and eat it, make a reasonable rate of return, but not have to go through. We have a principle called the 5 to 10% golden rule. We want to stay in that range of losses because if we're down more than 10%. Typically, that's going to feel painful, 15%, 20%. Then we start hitting that panic button a little bit, and we have to be able to stay invested. But we don't want to stay invested white knuckling it. We want to be able to stay invested comfortably. Say, yeah, okay, if I'm down 10% when the market's down 35, 40, 50, then that's okay.
Sure.
Because it's doing the management of those assets, the risk management of those assets, doing its job. And so, unfortunately, it's just not really a very big part of how I see clients' portfolios managed was focusing on managing risk. I always say we're a risk manager first. Money management, retirement, you have to manage risk first in a client's portfolio. Otherwise, talking about income planning, all that kind of stuff is fine. But if those assets aren't there, then it's a moot point.
Absolutely. David, are people often surprised to learn how much risk they're actually taking when they come in to sit with you and you take a look at everything and they think maybe they're more moderate, but then you discover something else?
Absolutely, that's the biggest surprise people have, because most clients, we have a whole paper, a white paper I've written called the 7 myths of a 60-40 portfolio, which is what most people have, a 60% stock, 40% bond portfolio, or some iteration of that. And that kind of portfolio, we stress test every portfolio. So if somebody wants to reach out to me to get a second opinion from me, go through our review process, one of the first things we look at is the risk. We have to measure risk in the portfolio.
Okay.
We have to look at the risk. And typically the average person listening to me today would lose in a 2008 financial crisis like we had, which was the worst, down 55%. It took 18 months to get there, was down about 35%, and that's in a, quote, balanced, diversified portfolio.
Okay.
It's crazy.
Yeah, yeah.
So that is the biggest surprise people have, because a, quote, moderate, it's all relative. You know, a moderate investor is probably going to lose in a traditional portfolio 30 to 40%.
Okay.
And so conservative may be 15 to 25%. And most people aren't comfortable losing more than 10%.
Yeah.
I always ask the question, how much money do you want to lose in retirement?
Exactly. Zero.
Okay, well,
Zero, none.
we have a gap to bridge here, because it's not part of your plan right now.
Yeah.
So that's the biggest surprise, is the risk that clients have in their portfolios.
Absolutely. Do you recommend a more conservative approach as people are in the retirement years? How do you gauge that exactly, David?
I kind of look at it bifurcating the portfolio, meaning that we will want to look at, unfortunately, people are so hyper-focused on stocks and bonds, there's other asset classes. So part of mitigating risk is investing in other asset classes outside the stock and bond market. You can invest in guaranteed lifetime income investments that are not tied to the stock market, that just give us pension income. We can also get increasing income in retirement through guaranteed income sources. We can invest in hard assets like real estate. So, our clients invest in what's called necessity-based real estate, where they're investing directly into shopping centers that own, the tenants are Kroger, CVS, Walgreens, Dollar General, Roth stores, discounters, grocery, pharmacy, that during COVID had no issues. In fact, Warren Buffett bought Kroger stock just this last year. I mean, so we're very defensive, but at the same point in time, we need to make money. Yeah. And we want cash flow. So if we're talking about guaranteed lifetime income streams, and we can get 5% for the rest of our lives, plus inflation, potentially. What if we can get in real estate a 5 or 6% distribution rate without spending down the assets? Those are the kind of things immediately we want to shift. How do we protect assets against market, stock and bond market? And just that one component can shift a lot of risk away and a lot less volatility, but as importantly, or more importantly, give us income. Okay. And not put so much pressure on the portfolio when markets are down to be taking out significant, sums of money. And so it's just a total different way of looking at things. And it's just, you have to want to do this. I always tell clients, it's a lot of information. It's a lot of different disciplines of managing money. But I think it's required. Okay. And there's no need to take a bunch of risk. If you get a 5% rate of return over the rest of your retirement, you're probably going to be fine. Okay. So again, why would we have a 20, 30% potential decline in a portfolio if we need 5? Yeah, absolutely. So that's just the way we look at it. How do we mitigate risk? We have a saying, we want the most amount of income, the least amount of risk, and never run out of money. Most amount of income, least amount of risk, and never run out of money. So that's my job. And that creates peace of mind for people that are in their retirement years, because everyone wants to know that they're going to be okay no matter what. And so you develop a plan that does exactly that. This is the perfect time for us to open up the phone lines, David, to the viewers at home. To our viewing audience at home, the number to call is 866-739-3775. What David is offering you today is a complimentary retirement review. Let him take a look at what you currently have in place and make sure it's the right plan for you. Again, the number to call is 866-739-3775. If you have $500,000 or more in assets, this plan will be a perfect plan for you. Again, the number to call is 866-739-3775. We have to take a very short commercial break, but when I come back with David, we're going to have more questions and answers about how to plan your perfect retirement. Please stay tuned.
How confident are you in your current financial plan? Do you know with certainty how the recent market volatility will affect your future hopes and dreams? How much are you paying in taxes? And how much are you losing to unnecessary high fees? You didn't work to save this money so that you could spend your time worried in retirement. Now is the time to take charge of your finances so you can feel confident about your future. Call in during the next 30 minutes of today's show only to set up an absolutely complimentary, no obligation, full-blown financial review that will result in your own customized written plan. This is a $999 value that we're giving away complimentary to the first 10 people who respond. We'll start with a full-blown analysis of what you already have by running a report to untangle how much you are currently paying in fees, how you're allocated for risk, and what it's costing to work with your current advisor. Next, we'll identify your goals. Where do you see yourself in the next 5 years? Where do you want to go, and who do you hope to go there with? Is your current financial plan set up to get you there without mishap? Let's design a roadmap to create a financial plan you can follow with confidence. Get the piece that so many people are missing from their retirement. Find out how having a written plan can make a difference to your retirement dreams. Call now to schedule your complimentary, no obligation, full-blown financial review today.
And welcome back to The Retirement Architect. My name is Cynthia Defazio, and I'm joined today by David Reyes. And David is the founder and chief financial architect of Reyes Financial Architecture. David, a great first segment of the show, and wanted to talk to you a little bit. Obviously, there's been so many changes for people with, just changing jobs, perhaps. A lot of people in years past would stay in the same position forever. They would retire with a pension and go on with life. But now we're in an area where people are kind of, moving a little bit more. So my question for you is, if someone has a 401k with a previous employer and they've started a new job, what do you recommend they do with that 401k?
Well, 401ks in general, if you're 59 and a half or older, you can do a distribution into an IRA.
Okay.
So IRS allows you to do that with no penalty, no taxes.
Okay.
So number one, you want it, whether we're helping you or not, you'd rather do that because you have more options inside of your own IRA. Okay, because people think, well, an IRA is an investment. No, it's a placeholder. Your 401k holds the investments. The IRA holds the investments. What you put in is what's important, right? And so we don't invest in an IRA. We invest through an IRA. And so the point is that we want to have 401k plans that we have. If we can move and want to move them, the biggest mistake I see is clients making is leaving old plans. And the worst thing I see is clients moving money from an old 401k to an existing 401k plan. Because all you've done is then relock up that money. And most plans have actually gotten worse because of compliance issues where now, there wasn't a lot of options anyway, but some plans maybe have 5 or 6 different options, investment options. And not that most consumers know what to pick anyway. They kind of do the diversification by default. I'll pick all the funds, right? You see that all the time?
Exactly.
And so the problem is that 401k plans are very limited in what they can do. They're expensive in the sense that most of them just own mutual fund investments. So mutual funds are expensive. We'll do a segment on fees inside of mutual funds, which are extremely expensive, up to 3% or more sometimes.
Wow, okay.
Annuities get a bad rap, but mutual funds are a close second cousin when it comes to cost.
Okay.
And they're just unnecessary. So cost, flexibility, managing risk. There's not a lot of things we can do inside of a 401k plan where we can do the things that we can do as a firm to help mitigate risk and create income. So we always will recommend clients, again, if we're helping them or if they're on their own, to move 401k assets into your own IRAs. You're going to have less expenses because people don't realize it costs money to have that plan, and you're paying money for that. People say, well, David, I'm not paying any money for that. Yeah, you're paying money for the plan, and you're paying money for the investments in there that you don't necessarily have to pay.
Okay.
So there's a lot of practical reasons for it. It can be intimidating. Some clients, they feel more comfortable having their money in the 401k because it's just what they're used to.
Right.
So there's no tax, there's no penalty. If you're 59 and a half or older, or you're separated from service, you've moved from a prior employer. I had a client the other day that had literally 6 401k plans.
Wow.
Talk about moving a lot.
Yeah,
they were in the tech industry and went here, there, everywhere, an engineer, Qualcomm, and different types of other companies. And he liked it, actually. We had to, not convince him otherwise, but educate him otherwise, that because he thought it was more diversification. I said, well, they're pretty much the same fund families that you have over here.
Yeah.
It may feel better, but you have less control.
Yeah.
And it's hard to do a plan. It's like when I see a client that has, they have 15 statements, and you have all these different accounts. It's hard. How do you measure something like that? How do you look at the risk? How do you look at how do you look at the returns? So we really want to, I call it reductionism. As we get older, we want to have less is kind of more, right? So I want to consolidate as much as I can. And so instead of having 10 accounts, we can have 3. right? So we have to be able to measure and map these types of, the returns, the risks, the cash flows. And so part of that is that, and because people get nervous about that, especially when the markets aren't doing well, they got these accounts strewn everywhere. It's much more, I think it's much more scary to be, well, how do I control my assets instead of here, they're right here. And so the 401k plans, for sure, there's no real good reason. The only time I ever will have somebody keep a 401k plan, if they're in a very litigious business, they're doctors, things like that, there is asset protection inside of those plans where if you get sued, those are protected under ERISA laws. And so there are certain circumstances where we'll leave that, but it's for different reasons. But that's, for most people, that's not the issue. But if it is, you got an OBGYN. I had somebody keep their money in the 401k plan because the fact is they have what's called tail risk, right? Something happens 20 years down the road, 10 years down the road, that 401k plan, as long as it still can be managed, may be the place to keep it. So that's an exception to the rule. But again, because we're trying to protect capital first, if somebody does have a high risk of litigation down the road, a 401k plan, a pension plan, it may be better to keep those assets there. But that's the one in 20, 1 in 30 people that I'll come across that have that. But otherwise, it doesn't make sense to keep it there.
Okay. Let me ask your opinion. What is the difference between a Roth contribution and a Roth conversion?
Yeah, there you go.
Excuse me.
So, I hate the financial ease we have to use in our industry. So Roth just means tax-free. Okay. And so a Roth contribution just means that you contributed to your 401k or to a Roth IRA, and you already paid the tax. Okay, so there was no tax benefit to do that. A conversion means where you own an IRA and you want to make it a tax-free IRA, you're going to have to convert it to a Roth, which now is titled as a tax-free Roth. You're paying the taxes today, but it's going to accumulate tax-free compounded for the rest of your life and the rest of your children's life and their children's life. So we can talk more about that, but it is confusing. It's tax-free, right?
Okay.
But you want the contributions to be either tax-free in the sense that where you're paying the taxes today, or you can convert assets. So I always like to recommend clients have both, both tax-deferred assets and tax-free assets. I call it as part of tax diversification because we don't really know what tax is going to look like in the future. Now I think they're going to be higher, but at a minimum we want to have assets that grow tax-free, some that grow tax-deferred, and some that we may pay tax on capital gains basis. So I like to have capital gains tax provision, tax-free, and tax-deferred.
Okay.
And I just think it's a smart way to look at taxes because, again, I don't know exactly what's going to happen with taxes. I think they'll be higher, but capital gains taxes, ordinary income taxes are going to be different than they are today, and tax-free is always tax-free.
Okay.
So we focus a lot on how do we reposition assets for retirement. My goal is to have clients over a 5-year period, if they hire me, to pay 30 to 50% less taxes in retirement than they would have today when they met me. So that's a big piece of our offering to clients is how do we mitigate taxes. My partner's a CPA. We have our own in-house estate plan attorneys. We take planning very, very seriously. So there's lots of ways, fees, taxes, that you really can start putting the things on your side, right? Little by little, chipping away and making sure that we don't leave any stone unturned to help to mitigate risk, mitigate expenses, costs.
Sure.
So it takes a team effort to do that. I'm not smart enough to do that on my own, so it's a lot.
Well, I think it's so important to actually factor in taxes in retirement because so often you hear people say, well, when I retire, my taxes are going to go down because my income's going to change, but that's not the case. Yeah,
especially the percentage of income that's taxed at certain levels. I mean, again, depending on what happens with taxes going forward, I think tax is going to be higher.
Yeah.
We want to, getting back to that whole focus of tax diversification. It's not talked about enough. Let's at a minimum, let's create a tax bucket and say, okay, I want to convert a certain amount of IRA assets that are taxed at ordinary income tax rates when I take them out. Let's pay some taxes today and lock in the taxes. Taxes are the lowest they've been historically in our country ever.
Makes sense, yeah.
So, I'm not that smart, but the fact is the cheapest they've ever been, I'll take that for some of my assets. And some clients were really aggressive with it but if I can at least move 30 to 50% of our assets so we're not paying tax on almost half of our retirement income, and that money all goes to our kids tax-free, that's a lot better than having to pay all this ordinary income tax on a number we don't know. I think inflation is going to be an issue, as we've talked about, so that's another cost.
Yeah.
On top of that, your kids are going to have to pay taxes when you pass away. They have to take distributions of IRA assets within a 10-year period, so they're forced to pay as much as 40% taxes. There's a myriad of reasons why we want to move assets out of these assets, these investment vehicles like IRAs that were great tax deferral vehicles, but they're really bad distribution vehicles. So we want to be proactive about that because that can make a huge difference in somebody's retirement lifestyle, especially if you're younger. and younger to me is you're in your 60s, early 60s, mid 60s. You're still, you get in your late 70s, in your 80s. Doing, conversions is not into tax-free accounts is not really that high value. For your beneficiaries it is, but not for you. So we want to be aggressive, especially if you're still in your 60s, for sure.
Okay. David, this is the perfect time for us to open up the phone lines again to the viewers at home. To the viewing audience at home, that number to call once again is 866-739-3775. What David is offering you is a complimentary review of what you currently have in place for your retirement plan. Let him take a look to make sure that where you are today is going to actually get you to the next 5, 10, and perhaps even longer years comfortably and peacefully. Again, this offer is available to you for just picking up the phone today. The number is 866-739-3775. It'll work best if you have at least $500,000 or more in assets. Again, we have to take a very short commercial break, but when we come back, I'm going to have some more questions for David about how to plan your perfect retirement. Stay tuned.
As a good saver, you've been putting away money during your working years. Studies find that the biggest fear of retirees is running out of money. Market volatility isn't just the downward movement of stock prices, it's the size and frequency of change. The more dramatic the ups and downs, the higher the volatility. This can put savers who are newly retired or a few years away from being retired at greater risk. Today's generation of retirees is not receiving traditional pensions as our parents or grandparents did. Instead, we have retirement accounts such as 401ks or 403bs. These accounts typically expose your money to market risk. The last thing you want right before retirement is to lose a portion of the money you need for income. But how do you turn these accounts into a retirement income? Is it safe to keep all your retirement money sitting in the stock market? The last thing you want is to lose a portion of the money you need for income due to market loss. By working with a financial professional, you can learn how to turn a portion of your savings into an income stream for life and income for the life of your spouse if you're married. We all have moments in our lives when we wish we had taken action sooner. Don't let procrastination reign on your retirement parade. Act now before it's too late. Please call our office to set up your no-cost, no-obligation retirement income review today.
And welcome back to The Retirement Architect. My name is Cynthia Defazio, and I'm joined today by David Reyes. And David is the founder and chief financial architect at Reyes Financial Architecture. I want to talk to you a little bit, David, obviously about what it feels like when someone comes into the office, just in case they're watching for the very first time. And I love hearing you describe what that experience is like. So I'm going to let you run with it. What does it feel like when someone's coming into the office?
I would say relaxed. That's the key.
Okay.
So we give out different presents for Christmas and different gifts for retirees, and we have a blanket we give out that says "Relax, you're covered." We also have an umbrella. So that's the whole theme: relax. The last thing I want somebody to do is come into my office and feel intimidated and feel stressed. We have great staff, really great staff, seasoned staff, people that care. I would say you can't teach somebody to care. You can't pay somebody to care. You either do or don't.
Yeah, absolutely.
Got to care. We care, and just to relax, I always say we're gonna have a conversation.
Yeah.
We're gonna talk and figure out, can I help? I don't ever assume, I can help you, no problem. I don't know.
Yeah.
Most times I can. There's certain situations I can't, but I'm open to, if you're willing to spend the time, I'm willing to spend the time with you, I always like to say. But we typically are spending in an initial meeting with somebody, a visit, anywhere from an hour and a half to 2 hours. So we'll go wherever the conversation goes. No agenda, just get to know somebody and really see if I truly think I can add significant value to what they're doing. Again, I don't want to add incremental value. If there's one or two things they need to change, I always say, here's what you need to do.
Yeah.
Again, that's rare, but if that is the case, I truly will say, just do what you're doing. We don't want to make all these big changes to make big changes. We need to do it to have big and better results.
Sure.
So that's so I would say relaxing, conversational, great staff, people care, and hopefully before they've come in, they've had a chance to get to know a little bit of our staff through the phone, and so, but we're very blessed to have the people we have.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit about being a fiduciary, because that's a very important term that the viewing audience needs to understand, and why that's a benefit to them.
Yeah, I think you should not be working with any advisor unless they're a fiduciary, and people don't realize a lot of the banks that are managing clients' money are not fiduciaries. They work for the bank. We work for our clients, and that's a big, totally different paradigm, totally different shift of how you perceive. I work for you. I don't work even for Reyes. I work for my clients, And I think, that's important. In order to do that, a fiduciary just basically means, think of the Hippocratic Oath for a doctor, using attorney-client privilege, whatever puts the client in a position to where they have a team member on their side, somebody that's really on their side.
Absolutely.
And unfortunately, in our business, there's a lot of scenarios where, the advisor does not have to put the interest of the client first, which sounds crazy. It shouldn't be that way.
I agree.
It's too confusing for consumers, and I wish there was a single standard of care. But we have a legal duty. So we have a legal duty to put your interest ahead of our own in the firm. And we take that very seriously. It's the right thing to do. It's the moral thing to do. And unfortunately, there's some situations where clients are not getting the best advice. And a lot of times because the products they're purchasing and the clients, their advisors are getting paid a lot of money. And I hate to see that. And that's not always the case, but it's pretty obvious when it is.
Yeah.
But I think being a fiduciary is important, especially somebody who deals in multiple different types of investments, either in stocks and bonds and in real estate, even annuities or whatever it is, so they have a diverse background and be able to give you an objective opinion on all available assets. I use the doctor analogy. You don't want a doctor that just maybe has one expertise, that maybe he looks at different, multidisciplines of medicine. We look at our practice that way, and how do we look at every way possible to protect capital, to create cash flow, to grow capital conservatively. And I think to do that, you have to have a passion to do that, but also have to be on the same side as your client to really, truly be able to offer that advice.
So truly to be a partnership with your client, if you will, because retirement should not be something that people feel alone during that time. It's just, it can be scary without having a retirement income plan. Let's talk a little bit about that. There's a difference between the statements that are pulled out of the mail and designing a plan for someone. Yeah,
so we do what's called a Reyes Retirement Blueprint. So basically, we're doing a written retirement income plan. Income plan is the key. So most people may have a retirement plan, most don't, but a retirement income plan. So we want to make sure it's in writing, that we have the cash flow that we need for grandkids, trips, all that kind of stuff, taxes we're looking at, inflation, healthcare potentials, cost, those types of things. And so that is a written plan that we give to every client. And everybody needs that. And unfortunately, I've mentioned it before, I've counted on one hand the number of clients that actually have a written plan. So we love to do that for clients.
Well, and I think you are so amazingly good at that, because I love hearing all the positive feedback. People enjoy coming into the office. They've mentioned just how warm and welcoming that it is, and they love being your client. So, David, thank you for another amazing show this week.
Thank you.
To our viewers at home, the number to call is 866-739-3775. Let David take a look at what you currently have in place and make sure it's the right retirement income plan for you. Again, the number to call is 866-739-3775. We appreciate that you've spent time with us again this week, and thank you for watching. We look forward to seeing you here again next week. Be safe, be happy, be blessed, and take care now. Thank you.